This week on the Fantasy Beer Name Podcast.
How about all 26 taps are now cloud water?
Oh my god. I'm going to put some boundaries around this relationship pretty quickly.
Was this your friend who's the Chinese drummer?
No, and we've had this discussion. This man does not exist.
You really did save this all for this episode. You haven't told me any of this. I've seen it about 4 times since.
Just got a text off Jack, and he's just messaged me saying, it's called a Venn diagram, you fuckwit.
What was he like on crack at one point and
They've
locked
all been
himself
on
away?
crack. You're not going to get a call from the Lambic Patrol.
What is Szechuan? Because, I mean, it's in this apparently. I'm not tasting Chinese. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Fantasy Beer Name Podcast. I'm Christian.
And I'm Paul.
And as ever, this podcast is sponsored by our friends at Mosaic Board Printers, Europe's leading beer mat manufacturer. We're going to start this episode with an official retraction / apology. And for that, over to you, Paul.
Hello, my name is Paul, and in episode 3 of the Fantasy Beer Name Podcast, I may have inadvertently said something quite derogatory about the Welsh. It wasn't intentional. I'm sorry.
I'm sure it was all one big misunderstanding. Anyway, so what have we got planned for episode 4, Paul?
So we're going to discuss a couple of things that we've done over the past few weeks. So we took a visit to the amazing Crossover Blendery.
Yes.
Locking the merch for people watching on YouTube.
They probably can't see that because of the podcast.
Oh, because there's a bicarb in the way.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's a good looking shirt.
Trust me, why would I lie? So we went to Crossover, which was incredible, and I went to Sheffield.
Yes.
On a birthday outing.
We're going to listen. Yeah, I mean, Hannah didn't invite me, which I was offended by for a couple's holiday.
I was just offended my wife came instead of you, Chris, to be honest.
I think
I will have words.
Given where we're at with Planet Beer TV, I think it's entirely fair that I should be involved in most couples' activities.
Oh my god. I'm just going to put some boundaries around this relationship pretty quickly.
But before we do this, before we kind of delve into all these areas...
What are we drinking?
What are we drinking and what is the fancy beer name going to be?
Okay, well, Let's start with a little drinky booze. Mm-hmm. So we are drinking a very local brewery to us in Walsall.
Block Switch,
yeah, I know. It just
I know.
The royal block switch
to the locals, that to my mates, because I do have mates.
Because you're around that neck of the woods, aren't you?
Yeah, that's my neck of the woods. So like Cannock, Walsall, Block Switch, that sort of thing.
All that nonsense with that weird place. So I'm drinking a cask by New Invention, and you're drinking a keg by New Invention. But I don't know what yours is called.
Citralicious, and it's a 3.8. I want to say 3.6, 3.8.
I'll be honest with you, I don't even mind. It's called Cosmic something or other, and it's around about 4%.
Yeah,
but I'm not really sure.
That looks sensational, to be fair.
But they're a cracking little brewery, and big up to them. And
got a really good tap room.
Really, really enjoy their beer, and they do amazing pizza. So
yeah,
if you ever come down to Block Switch for a holiday,
got some good board games there. I remember last year I went. We did this big meetup before we went to Belgium. And Jack, who's the cameraman on this podcast episode, he got so drunk that he went upstairs to have a nap. But then he also came down with like a board game, and everyone laughed at him and was like, "What are you doing? Like, why have you just brought Scrabble down?" And he's like, "I just want to try and stay awake." I had to get him a taxi. I Ubered him, threw him in the Uber and sent him on his way. It was embarrassing.
Jack fucked
it. But then we had a great time in Belgium. That was the whole point of the meetup. It was just before we went to Belgium. And it was really good. But that's my new invention story, Paul.
Anyway, enough this gay banter, Chris. What is today's fantasy beer name?
Okay, so I believe because I picked Bum Egg last week,
yes,
it's now your turn to pick one.
Now, I've had a little bit of
pick a good one.
A route through the list, which is getting quite extensive. It needs to be edited.
I say that there's quite a few now. I'm just really hoping that you pick
I
one that I remember the story for.
Yeah, so I've come across this one, which is Billboard Foreigner.
Yeah, I remember this one.
This is definitely one of yours because I have no memory of this.
So obviously we've got Jack behind the camera on this one.
Hi, Jack.
But usually, and obviously before we got self-sufficient in filming our own stuff.
They say with two people behind the cameras.
Before then, and obviously he's now also our podcast sound designer and sound mixer.
Who's that, Chris?
The lovely Jake Healey. He's got a great head of hair, and he's also a very talented man. He's a photographer, videographer, and what he does with sound is unreal. It's the reason why this podcast sounds so good. But anyway, if you remember when we were trying to get all of these videos and stuff kind of lined up for like Nothing Bound, Northern Monk, we were like, let's check Jake's availability, because Jake can come along, bring his kit, film us, we can do our thing. But a lot of the time, Jake couldn't do weekends, which is when we could do.
Classic Jake.
Yeah. And it's because he has a separate paid foreigner, as we call them, a side job, a foreigner.
Oh.
And it's I was like, what are you doing with your side job? What are you going to photograph? Is it a wedding? Are you going to do like a photo shoot in some woods or something? No, he's photographing billboards.
Just empty billboards?
No, not empty ones, like the advertisements on the boards in situ sort of thing.
Wow.
And I called that his billboard foreigner. So I think it was that one I was like, is Jake available for Nothing Bound? And I was like, no, he's got a billboard foreigner. And you were like, what's that? And since then you've forgot. And I've just told you again.
If anyone from the tax office is listening to this...
he does pay tax.
I'm sure everything is above board.
We're really getting ourselves into a rut with this podcast. Last week we offended celebrities and the everyman and the Welsh. And this week we're getting Jake, our beloved sound mixer, videographer.
We're really narrowing down now. Yeah.
I reckon this
Jake.
This podcast will be done by episode 9. If we get further than that. In fact, actually, just to further alienate ourselves, I guess, Luke, who all this podcast gear comes from.
I've heard he's a tax dodger.
Yeah, he is a tax dodger, but he was also warning me about something it's something in podcasting called the 7 episode bump or something. Is that right?
What's this?
Yeah, something. So basically, after 7 episodes, so in theory, when you first launch your podcast, you should be getting listeners upon listeners upon listeners, because everyone's like with the hype and the momentum and people are checking it. By 7, they're getting bored and they're dropping off. Now, we're not experiencing this problem because no one's listening anyway.
Yeah. Maybe saw the tax talk.
so it can only go up, I guess. But I don't know where that came from. But yeah, just episode 7. But I think this is when we're going to start wheeling out the special guests. We do have some very tasty special guests lined up from some of your favourite breweries, which we've got to know and love over the years.
Yeah.
Anyway, I suppose we should talk about Crossover.
Unless we offend all of them between now and then.
Give us enough time and we'll probably burn those bridges as well.
Yeah, but let's talk about someone we haven't managed to offend.
Yet. I mean, we've just done the videos for them.
Give them time. We haven't actually talked about it here. Yeah. So, yeah.
George and Charlie from Crossover.
Yeah, wonderful Crossover.
So famously, they're a blendery.
Really famously, every man, woman and child knows Crossover.
So I think what was interesting about this is obviously they were in the same neck of woods as Baron.
Yes. That's why we went, let's be honest. We're quite late.
So we kind of were able to kill 2 birds with one stone. But I think what was really exciting, something that we didn't really anticipate necessarily, was the fact that this literally was 2 opposite ends of the spectrum of the craft beer world.
Couldn't be more different.
Yeah. I mean, so much of what Crossover do. I mean, do you want to just give a bit of a background on what Crossover?
Yeah, so
Don't call it lambic.
Jesus Christ. Crossover Blendery are one of very few, I guess, Belgium-esque traditional beer makers. And I hesitate what to call them, because they call themselves a blendery, not a brewery, because they don't brew anything on site. So they specialise in barrel-aged Belgian style. Think lambics, think doozes, think fruit blended beers like the Belgians have been doing for centuries. But they don't brew on site. They have a base golden ale, which is brewed somewhere else. and then they bring it in, and then they add to that ale fruit, or they blend different versions of that ale and different ages of that ale in different types of barrels. And those barrels could be anything from wine barrels, whiskey barrels, port barrels, whatever thing they lay their hands on.
Neutral oak sort of thing.
Neutral neutral barrels as well.
Neutral oak hotel.
on an airplane over the sea by a neutral oak hotel. That's quite a niche. Indie humour.
90s indie bandy. That's niche.
Fucking great album.
Anyway.
So yeah, there are pains to say they're not a brewery, they're a blendery. So their artistry comes from how they combine their core ingredients with their base ale in certain styles of barrels for various different amounts of time to produce hugely different results.
Yeah, and obviously you've watched the videos, right? So you'll know at this point what they're actually all about. And if you haven't watched the videos, then definitely head over to our YouTube channel, Pint Beer TV, where we have 2 videos with Crossover Blendery. So yeah, what I just found really interesting about the whole thing really is that they're essentially on like this, like if you take one of those fancy little circular graphs where you've got like a cross point, they're right at the very centre. They're at like the epicenter of that. Because if one of those said beer, wine, cider, and whiskey in those quadrants, they're right in the middle. Yeah. And what they do spans kind of practices and kind of little idiosyncrasies of all those different types of alcohol.
And you'd say they've got more in common with maybe sparkling wine manufacturers in France than they do with Baron, who's just up the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is mind-blowing, really. But the Crossover Blendery, the Blendery, I guess you call it, their location
is beautiful.
Is stunning. I mean, it's classically like any kind of tap room. It's on an industrial estate, but not classically. This industrial estate is an old farming area that's been converted into various
proper rural,
various different utilisation barns. So there's a coffee roastery and there's various manufacturing places around, which it's all very sort of craft based. But they sit in this massive barn with huge open doors. Like imagine like the Waltons. They're when they get up in the morning and open up the barn.
That was the thing. That was like when we first rocked up there. We drove down this little country lane to get there, and then as soon as I saw it, and obviously the sun was fucking gorgeous at that time as well.
And it was perfect time. It was about 10 in the morning.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my god, the tables were out, the doors were wide open on the barn, and it was just full of barrels. And I was like, we couldn't have better weather for this. Now, interestingly, they do only open the tap room in the summer, spring and summer, maybe. I think he said they will be closing that in October.
Yeah.
So probably by the time this podcast,
it gets too cold, and they just.
Well, that's when they brew. That's the thing.
But he was saying literally there's no point because no one comes anyway because it gets so bloody cold in there. They can't heat the place, even if they wanted to have a working tap room. It makes no sense.
Yeah. So I think he said basically in the summer they don't make anything, and then in the winter they're making beers which are probably going to be opened and bottled and stuff in 2 years' time. 1 to 2 to 3 years' time. And that was quite interesting. Our little taste test thing where it was like trying their golden ale base from different ages.
So they'd never done that before. So it was really interesting for them to try it as well. But just to paint the picture of the place, and hopefully you've seen the video, so you know what it looks like. But when the barn doors are open, and these are massive barn doors. I mean, they're like 20-foot tall barn doors, and they're open. So you've got this massive entrance, and it's just top to bottom barrels, stacked on top of each other, and it is so classically Belgian feeling. It feels like rural Belgium, right?
Yeah.
That's I kept saying this feels like I'm sat in some kind of lambic manufacturer in the outskirts of Brussels, and it's exactly what it feels like. So they've nailed the aesthetic of it, and it was really, really. It just felt like it touched your soul a little bit. It just felt in the right place.
Because I think me and you are definitely spirit animals in terms of the fact that we're proper Belgiophiles. Yeah. For me, I started off with real ale. Then before I got into craft, I got into Belgian beer and like fell in love with it.
It's amazing. But they've nailed that kind of cultural
One
feel.
of the things that I wanted to kind of touch upon, because I didn't really press him on it, because obviously who are we to do that?
We're going to offend him.
At that point, no. But the part that it talks about, like, but why not? Why not offend him? But that whole thing about, it says, out of respect for the Belgian kind of, the Belgian beer culture, they don't call it lambic, when they have every right to call it lambic. Really, it's not a protected characteristic.
No,
it's not like it's not something that's regional necessarily.
Yeah,
it kind of, there's an element of that, but realistically, they could call it a lambic, and they'd be totally in their rights. But I respect the fact that they don't. But what do you think about that? I mean, is that cool in your eyes, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's just heritage, isn't it? It's just respecting your heritage. I mean, lambics come from an area surrounding Brussels.
Yeah,
that's what it is, right? So out of respect, people call them lambic style beers, or lambic influence beers, or Belgium influence blends, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
But no one's going to turn up your door and knock it down. You're not going to get a call from the Lambic Patrol. No, if you call it lambic. But
the other thing,
you'd be ostracized. I can't even say it. Ostracized pretty quickly by beer geeks for doing it. And
there is
quite
that
right.
to it.
So I mean, Crossover Blendery. I mean, it's a very specific beer style, and they don't compromise. There's a few things for non. Lambic fans, like they've got a good core lager and a couple of pales on, but my God, what a selection. And the wine list.
Yes, yeah.
I was so glad I was driving.
Actually, I got talking to, while he was making us a pizza, got talking to George, and I don't know if you noticed, but like when I was going and getting some shots out the back, there's a whole new, it's basically the same again, but just the barn just carries on going.
Goes on, yeah.
And it was just full of just crap. But he said, December, or late November, December, they get like Christmas tree, they sell the Christmas trees from there. Yeah. So what they do then is they do a little pop-up, although the tap room's not open, they do a pop-up where they're just selling and
serve the Christmas shoppers,
Yeah. And I was like, I bet that is a great market for you though, because people will just buy it because it looks good. Yeah. They don't know necessarily, it looks like wine. They don't necessarily know what it tastes like. And he was like, oh, absolutely. He's like, a lot of them probably don't even know what it tastes like. They don't know what to expect, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a good price.
Yeah.
It's in a nice fancy bottle. It's barrel aged. What more could you want? The fact then that someone then opens that at Christmas and then probably has that at Christmas dinner is like, what is this basket vinegar I've just tried?
Now everyone's into lambics.
But I mean, it's got to be how that style kind of lands with people as well, though. That must be how people pick up on that, because it's an acquired taste. But until you've had it, you don't know that you like it. I didn't know that until I tried like a Duchess de Bourgogne, and I was like, champagne and vinegar in one drink.
I'm really looking forward to the Johnny Macro has to drink 8 different lambics.
That would be interesting.
But anyway, Crossover Blendery, man. It's again much more accessible than Baron was. It's
closer to things.
It's closer to things, which is the strapline I think of the brewery. Crossover Blendery, closer to things, but it's just outside of Hitchen, really accessible, wonderful place. Go there. If the sun's out, man, you'll have a whale of a time. Eat the pizza, drink all the beer, drink all their amazing wine. Incredible.
Yeah, I suppose on that note, we should hurtle rapidly into
advertisement break.
Fantasy adverts. Okay, so for those of you who are initiated in this now, this is where we.
Can I just stop you here? Just got a text off Jack there, who has referenced something you said earlier, where you mentioned circular graphs, and he's just messaged me saying it's called a Venn diagram, you fuckwit.
Okay,
so stick that up your ass.
Yeah. So this is why I usually use Jake.
But sorry to interrupt your advertisement break.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Fantasy Ad Break, this is where me and Paul write an advert for each other and we kind of take it in turns. So this week, is it my turn?
It's your turn to read. I've produced a masterpiece.
Yeah, so Paul has written me an advertisement for a beer-related product. So we've so far had, what was it, episode 1, Sud Buddy. Episode 2 was the dating app Yeast Affections.
Yeast Affections, yeah.
Episode 3...
Which I've also got funding for, by the way.
Yeah. Episode 3, we had the glass washer, the smoothie sour glass wash 432, or 432, as you kept calling it, which I found great. What is it going to be this week? Let's find out from our fantasy sponsor.
And now, time for a word from Planet Beer TV's fantasy sponsor,
Masters of the Brewniverse! Step into a new galaxy of beer-based imagination with the new Masters of the Brewniverse action figure series, where craft and magic collaborate to create the toy craze of 2023. Take control of the mighty warrior, Citraxus, as he fights to protect the planet Synconia from the armies of the dreaded sorcerer, Diacetor. Joining Citraxus in this fight against evil are his amazing teammates, the noble Hop Lords, Warrior Princess, Goza, Master of the Skies, Lupulus, Wizard, Sars, and Citraxus's trusty steed, Carhartt. But they will have to fight against Diacetor's vile henchmen, the dastardly Green Kings, Lightstruck, Lagertop, and Horse Blanket. All action figures come with their own unique weapons, removable flannel shirts, detachable beards, and for a limited time only, they'll have their own untapped badges. So collect them all today and join the Masters of the Brewniverse on their epic quest to give people, who really should know better, something to do while sitting alone in a brewery tap room on an industrial estate. Masters of the Brewniverse! Brewing legends, crafting heroes, unleash the action with every sip. May contain gluten. Welcome to part 2 of the Fancy Beer Name podcast.
Hello.
Hi. So we're starting off with a fresh pour, as we tend to do, and we're going big, my friend.
This is massive.
So
what are we drinking?
This is... So obviously we're in the hot vault right now, and I saw this and I was like, oh, that's the one to finish the night with. It's a Wonder Beyond. It's called The Magician's Nephew. And this is 15.1% Imperial Stout. Absolute filth.
Stupid.
So, massive chocolate, vanilla, and cacao. With Szechuan and cayenne peppers. So, cheers.
Cheers, man.
You're already jumping ahead and, you know,
Yeah, well, you know.
but I didn't like you anyway.
It's that 0.1 that does it for me. That is absolutely incredible.
Fucking hell.
I need to really take that slow. Don't that 0.1% take me down?
That's a big measure. Is that a third? Yeah, I mean, it says so on the glass, yeah.
Wow.
Fair enough.
You got really animated about that then.
I just think that looks a bit
Do you think
much.
we're trying to poison you or something?
It looks a bit much.
I've got
15%.
I've got a bit less because I had to give Jack a few behind the camera. A few pours. Yeah.
I think he took a bit of mine as well.
Did he?
All in the interest
Classic
of fairness.
Jack.
I literally couldn't give it away enough. And not because it's a bad beer, but because I've got work tomorrow and it's 15.1%.
Give it away. Give it away now. Red Hot Chili Peppers would not have that attitude if I go to work in the morning.
I'm getting the chili peppers thing. Like, I've not got like Anthony Kiedis in my head or anything from drinking it, but I am getting a kind of chilliness. Like the heat is shining through, and I like that.
One for another podcast, but I hate Red Hot Chili Peppers with a burning passion.
Me too. I'm definitely more like, because there wasn't a big kind of grudge between them and Faith No More.
I don't really care about that. I just care about men in the 40s dancing around in their underpants. Put some clothes on. Actually,
Yeah, he's always topless, isn't he?
Pants.
But I'm also more a kind of
Mind you,
Faith No More guy.
but John Frusciante, legend of a guitar player. So
to be fair, yeah, wasn't he like on crack at one point? And locked
they've all been
himself
on
away?
crack. Yeah,
there's a good
they love a bit
documentary on
of
that
crack.
apparently. Yeah.
Anyway, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Welcome to Planet Beer Music.
Being John Fucker Cheer.
Fuck a cheer. Right, okay. We're circling. Right, so
What are we talking about in part
We're
2?
talking about what we did over the past few weeks. So,
Okay.
here's something interesting. I went to a really exotic place last weekend.
Maldives,
No,
London,
exotic, man. Come on.
Edinburgh.
Is this your ordinary exotic? London and Edinburgh?
I'm just naming places.
Nah, I mean, you never guess anyway. But it's a little known place called Sheffield.
Oh, okay, I was going to say Bermuda next.
Close. So Sheffield, I was whisked away to Sheffield on a romantic birthday weekend by my beautiful wife, Hannah. And,
I mean, we're not going to talk about the fact that I wasn't there.
well, again, you keep bringing this up. You know,
I do, yeah.
You can't come on our date weekends. So boundaries up, right?
Yeah.
But Sheffield,
Fine.
we went. Fine. Sheffield we go to because one, we got some friends up there, which was good to bump into those, and two, there was a very specific restaurant that Hannah wanted to try, which was exceptional.
What was that one?
I'm not going to give the game away because you can go to my Instagram to find out more.
Oh, come on. You can't self-plug.
Also,
Although you were putting a lot of this
didn't-
on the Planet Beer thing. I had to actually say at the time, we've just launched the podcast.
Also,
Can you not keep
I didn't put
putting-
any on my Instagram. And the reason I'm stalling because I can't remember the name of the place.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, why? Just name the place,
It
man.
was
We know-
called Flaps. I don't know, but it was excellent. It was a modern take on Chinese food, and it was wonderful.
Szechuan. Was the Szechuan in it?
It's all
Like, in
come
this
to me.
beer?
It's very much like
What is
Szechuan.
Szechuan? Because, I mean, it's in this, apparently.
It's a pepper.
I'm not tasting Chinese.
What do you think? I'm not getting into this. The Welsh thing is right.
Coming up next week, Christian apologises to the Chinese.
On casual racism, Planet Beer TV. So, right, okay, start again. So I went to Sheffield because one, it was my birthday. Two, we got friends up there. Three, there was a specific restaurant my wife wanted to take us to. And probably most importantly, Sheffield is a brilliant city for,
It's a beer haven. Yeah.
It's
Kelham
fucking
Island.
magnificent. Kelham Island, but the pubs in general, I adore Sheffield. Sheffield has got two of my favourite pubs on the planet, and I think a lot of people's favourite pubs.
The Shakespeare.
The Shakespeare and Rutland.
Shakespeare, more like.
Shakespeare, right. Rutland. No, it doesn't work at all. So those two pubs are, if I was to win the lottery tomorrow and buy a pub, I'd model them on the Rutland or the Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So they're classic traditional ale pubs, which they haven't barely been touched. You know, they keep the aesthetic of the old, working class Sheffield steel workers pubs.
Yeah. It's proper
pub, and they have proper cask on, and they balance that out with incredible modern craft beer.
Because this is the thing, right? Like when you talk about a city centre pub that's got cask ale on for days, like we're talking lots of taps. I think Birmingham, Wellington, and it's all very sad because it's all kind of like black country
the same
ales.
kind of beer.
Yeah, it's like the same one. There's no
50 Shades of Beige.
Yeah, I mean they did do like Steady Rolling Man on cask and stuff, and that was quite cool. But then by the same token, everything else is just because obviously, I mean, they're tied to black country ales. But what you're saying is there's
independent free
there's
houses
pubs up there that have all these taps. Yeah. Cask taps as well, and they actually make a go.
Yeah, the cask is excellent. Even the not so good traditional pubs are good. If you rock into no fanfare backstreet backstreet boozers.
Yeah,
you're probably gonna have something on there which you're gonna adore. If it's cask or keg.
Yeah,
it's really really great. There's a great philosophy around beer and brewing in general up in Sheffield. And
you're also close to Tim from Northern Monk.
Yes,
one of our craft beer Tims.
Well, we'll kind of talk about the sort of northern beer mentality anyway, which I think is phenomenal. However, Sheffield, I just really want to shout out a couple of great breweries we went to. So we went to Heist Brew.
Is this the one with all the wacky taps?
Yeah, Heist is mental. It's aimed at probably a kind of young crowd, but the beer's great. They do a 32 beer flight, which
that's exceptional.
I think it's 32, might be 30.
That. Yeah,
but it's ridiculous. They've actually got the flight paddle.
That is Steve Power's dream.
Yeah, I mean,
Steve Power, who was the legend from the last episode, who coined the Doom Bar. Yeah,
love you, Steve.
Regular listener. Yeah, that would be his thing.
You're a legend, Steve.
He would want
to. Gotta get the jingle in. You're a legend, Steve.
Legend, Steve.
No, you ad libbing. It's not jazz.
Well, I thought it was kind
You're
of
a legend, Steve.
I was going for 80s cock rock.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, yeah. So, but he would love that, and so would my dad, because obviously we're talking about like uniques. That sort of shit would just go down really well with them. Like, 30 beer.
But they had Heist Brewery. If you've not tried Heist, they're really, really good. They do.
Don't know if I have. I could check on tap now, but it might seem antisocial.
You've definitely done Heist. I know you have.
Because I've drunk them in your place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do multitude of styles. So they try everything. Hit and miss. But we had a couple of lagers which are fantastic. The IPAs and dippers are really, really good. They also had Hot Butcher for the World on.
Nice. American?
Yeah. So they had 2 taps dedicated to those guys, which was good. So big American beers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't get to try those because my wife was really hungover because we'd had a proper session the day before.
You went to Sheffield and you didn't even try Hot Butcher. It doesn't. It doesn't lend itself necessarily to that.
You went all the way to Sheffield. You didn't try this American brewery. What are you, some kind of asshole?
You went there and you didn't even try the local foreign beer.
Everyone in Sheffield is just drinking Hot Butcher of the World. So, yeah, but my wife took Hannah, I'm sorry, but I have to tell everyone this. She took a turn for the worst after we had a lot to drink the night before. And she had to go and take a slight break, let's put it that way. So I had a few hours to kill, and I went to the Shakespeare by myself.
You could have invited me.
Yeah, at this point.
I was in Peterborough.
You were? You were away?
I was already away.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I had a little chat with the barman in the Shakespeare. He was lovely. Some amazing beers on. Then I started drinking a Neon Raptor dipper, which probably wasn't the best idea at 2:00 after I've had a few beers
what a way to start,
as a top up from the night before when clearly drank too much. So I was on a very different level, I think, to most people.
I was fine on that first couple of drinks after. The
fun's clearer.
Yeah. As soon as you've got through that, you literally then just sail and cry.
Hey, you're good there. You just level out then, right?
Yeah. You basically what's that sport that they do? That winter sport?
Luge.
Tobogganing.
You're just going to say these words to each other.
Bobsleigh. Possibly.
What stupid sport? Luge. What's the difference between toboggan? Let's not get into this.
I don't know. What is this Planet Toboggan TV?
So anyway,
I don't like saying the name.
Sheffield, right? So I was sat there and
you just blatantly has gone Sheffield just to end the conversation.
We're on a time limit, right? So I always say that when I was trying to stop conversations. Sheffield. It's my safe word. So
Fantastic.
Sheffield. So I was sat in the Shakespeare enjoying the beer and on a level, and my buddy who lives in Sheffield messaged me and said he's playing a gig. A day gig, a matinee at a little festival that was going on.
You really did save this all for this episode. You haven't told me any of this. I've seen you about 4 times since.
And at this point, I agreed to meet him because I didn't know if my wife was going to be joining me. But then she texted me and said, right, I'm sorted. I'm now not green around the gills anymore. I'm ready.
She's had the chundering.
Chundering may have happened. So Hannah rocks up. We have a drink. She's back on it. We head down to this little venue in the south of the city centre, and I can't for the life of me remember what the venue was called. Anyway, but there was a little mini indie pop festival going on. Watched my buddy play the drums.
Was this your friend who's the Chinese drummer?
No, we've had this discussion. This man does not exist.
he's not Chinese.
At some point during our conversations, you've imagined a Chinese drummer that I know.
I thought we were
How many times do I have to tell you there's no Chinese drummer in my life?
We were going to get a band together because this is one of the things that kind of came out of Hall. Mark 1.
I've got to hear this.
It was like, I found out you play guitar, I play guitar, so we're like, let's make a band. We exchanged some tracks that we'd done over lockdown, enjoyed it. And you were like, oh yeah, man, my Chinese... the way I remember it, you kept saying my Chinese drummer friend is going to be in. He's already retired and he's only 40. And I was like, that's amazing.
Right, okay. Shut the fuck up for a minute, right? There's no way those words came out of my mouth, right? What you're thinking of...
Maybe not in that order, but that was the essence of what you were saying.
I have never ever said to you, my Chinese drummer friend who's 40 is already retired, right? That has never, ever happened.
But where have I got the Chinese thing from?
So, this is what's happened, okay? I was in a band with a drummer who had been made redundant from Boots. Right, as an optometrist, right, and he'd been given enough of a severance to be able to potentially retire before the age of 40. He also lived next door to a Chinese restaurant. Right?
That's what it is.
But I have never, ever said the words to you, my Chinese drummer friend has retired at the age of 40.
I mean... I think what we've got going on here is the Mandela effect. I remember something, that perhaps didn't happen. But yeah, I mean...
Nelson Mandela happened, I saw.
Yeah, no, he did,
on the
but
news.
I think that came from the fact that people thought that he'd died. That's the... It's actually a thing. Mandela
Sheffield!
yeah.
So, anyway, so we took my mate, the drummer, not Chinese, not retired.
Yeah. He was there playing
over 40.
like indie pop drums.
And we took him to St. Miles of the Desert, which
I tasked you. I said, if you're going up there, can you just secure us St. Miles of the Desert for an interview?
Yeah, just speak to them, he said. Just fucking speak to them.
I was like, just go up there, because no less, you love them.
I absolutely... I will now say I adore St. Miles of the Desert with a raging beer hard on. I think they're amazing. I think they're an amazing brewery. I love what they do. Their beer is fantastic. I love their mentality and their outlook.
So I said to you, when you go to Sheffield, get them.
Yep, and you did. So now it's about 5 o'clock. Been drinking quite heavily all day. Day 2, by the way. So this is the top up effect as well. I've now got a friend, not Chinese, in tow who is also well on his way and having a good time. Never been to St. Miles of the Desert, although he's lived in Sheffield for fucking 30 years. Twat. You know who you are. And,
like and subscribe.
Yeah, I saw the owner, Dan, St. Miles of the Desert, behind the bar, and I said to Hannah, I'm going to speak to him about Planet Beer TV. And then I sat down and I had about 5 best beers, pints of, which are quite pokey. And then I went to the toilet to try and... I didn't go to the toilet to find Dan. I went to the toilet to see if I could pass Dan on the way and grab him. He wasn't there. So I missed my opportunity. The next day, Hannah told me he was literally sat right next to me at one point. And in fact, at one point, it was just me and him alone.
Yeah.
And I still didn't acknowledge the fact he was there or speak to him.
Yeah. She did tell me this. She grassed on you.
Yeah, so I fucked up a little bit. Yeah. But the point of Sheffield, anyway, digress a little bit. Brilliant city. But it seems to be a city that has embraced beer and craft beer as a whole. And it's kind of... It's combined it in with the sort of traditional pub mentality, you know. It's a working class city that's, you know, been gentrified to a big degree because it's a student city, right?
You look at that versus somewhere like Birmingham, and it is just a...
Well, you look at loads of northern cities. I mean, you look at Sheffield, Manchester in particular. I mean, Christ, that place is incredible for beer. I mean, just fucking incredible.
Yeah. Pains me to say it. The real second city.
Leeds, you know. Yeah. Leeds is great, and then go down south, and we've got, you know, Bristol in particular, Brighton. You know, these places are beacons of craft beer, not just embracing the scene, but the really funding and helping out.
What's
the word I'm looking for? They're really helping out small businesses.
Yeah, I get that. And
in terms of food and
to be fair, you'd expect that from a city anyway. I think what you're basically saying is Birmingham isn't really pulling its weight, and obviously there's some good breweries there and there's some decent bars, but there's just not enough given per capita. The fact that Birmingham is probably one of the biggest city areas, it needs to do better.
Yeah.
For instance, recently, like I say, a city you expect to do better. Recently, I was in Peterborough on the calendar crawl thing. We went over to a pub in King's Lynn, but because we rocked up on bank holiday weekend, there was some sort of big festival at Sandringham, like Take That were playing, or fucking Robbie Williams or something like that. But they were playing, so it was just really busy in that area.
Beyond.
Yeah. So we ended up thinking, well, let's go back and then just stay in somewhere nearby, but also closer to home, and that was Peterborough for us.
Yep.
And I've got to say, Peterborough, for a place that I was thinking, is it even worth staying there, or should we just drive all the way back home? It was actually a really good place.
Some cracking old places.
There was some great venues there. So, for instance, the Stoneworks and Blind Tiger, in particular, were exceptional. Like, they had tap takeovers. It's literally the one time I've walked into a place that said it had a tap takeover of a brewery, and they weren't fucking around. Like Stoneworks, Cloudwater tap takeover. How about all 26 taps are now Cloudwater? I was like, wow, okay. I've seen tap takeovers before, and they still kind of leave their kind of house beers on, just like, But no, these guys are like, no, it's all or nothing. We're going 26 taps.
Holy shit.
But yeah, it was a really cool place, and apparently they do that all the time. And then there was Three Hills, Attic had done one as well in Blind Tiger.
Oh wow, okay.
So it seemed to be a place for me of like just a nice little beer drinking venue, and also tap takeovers, which seems to be quite erratic over. We do them over here, but like they seem to really go big on them there.
Yeah.
But Peterborough for me was my standout place. And I'd encourage anyone now that's listening, watching, whatever. What are your craft beer towns?
Lesser known towns.
Yeah, your lesser known towns. They're actually more bang for the buck than you think. You probably wouldn't have them on there, because I think that's the thing. Some people are doing the cities right, or some cities are doing it right.
Yeah,
and some cities aren't.
Yeah, there'd be a whole video on it, the conversations we had, but I think we mentioned earlier that by the time this comes out, Birmingham City Council is basically bankrupt.
Yeah.
And I used to have a bottle shop in Birmingham City Centre, so I understand the problems that small business have in the city centre, which is frustrating as hell, and it's destroyed innovation across the board, really. Food in Birmingham, by the way, is spectacular. It's one of the best places in Europe.
I was about to say, we've actually like mislabeled what could have been something in the Misery Corner Doom Bar here.
Yeah. well, let's see the outcomes of what's happened after today's news.
Big bankruptcy.
The Birmingham bankruptcy.
Anyway.
But yeah, for food and food and other things, it's remarkable. But for craft beer, it's city centre Birmingham is dog shit, and that really upsets me as someone who's been coming here for 20 odd years, drinking and enjoying the venues that are available to us. They've all the good places are closed. There's a few brilliant places remaining. Shout out to the Wolf, and shout out to Kill the Bar, for example, and Tilt. Amazing places, but really you have to go to the outskirts, the suburbs, which are quite hard to get to in Birmingham. Actually, I was thinking more like Sturchley and Kingsheath, but obviously Starbridge is in Birmingham. It's the Black Country. Come on.
No, it is, but we're only 20 minutes away. So.
Oh, for sure. So but there's satellite towns around Birmingham, right? But Birmingham city centre it needs to fucking pull its socks up, because it's annoying that I can't take people who don't live in Birmingham and don't know Birmingham into Birmingham anymore, and be able to say you can have a generally great time in terms of beer. Unless we go out to the suburbs, which are very difficult. So, really, let's see what happens, I guess. And
so finishing on a bittersweet note, as we like. Obviously, the kind of impending reach of the misery corner / doom bar was kind of like leaning over there. It's always there, especially when Birmingham's especially when Birmingham's mentioned. There's always some sort of tragedy going on around there. But yeah, thank you very much for listening to this one, guys. You can find us on all. I mean, you've found us already. Why am I telling you this? But yes, we're available on Spotify, all the other stuff. But please, if you are listening, do go and check out the YouTube channel, because that's our OG platform, and that's where we love to live, like a spider in the corner of your house with a handgun.
Took it too far.
Sheffield!